Okay, so hello, my dear students. So welcome to our first eventual lecture for the topic value added tax. Okay, so but before we'll discuss for the discussion of the value added tax, let's discuss muna the nature and concept of business taxes. Okay, so business taxes are imposed upon onerous transfer. No, so 'di ba, we have distinguished onerous transfer and gratuitous transfer in our previous discussions. Na yung um, gratuitous transfer yung subject to transfer tax, 'di ba? Kasi wala siyang consideration in the part of the other party, no? Here in onerous transfers, these are actually bilateral transfer. No? Parang may consideration sa both part of the parties. No? So these onerous transfer, such as sale, barter, or exchange, are subject to business taxes. No? So, but a person may, no, although not engaged in business, no, be subject to business tax. Okay? Yan. So under the tax code, there are three major business internal revenue taxes. So these are value added tax, no, that are added, no, to the purchase price, no, this yung tax rate dito, di ba, if you could still remember, this is 12%. We also have percentage taxes. No? So normally, if an entity is not subject to VAT, subject siya to percentage tax of 3%. But there are also other percentage tax, no, na hindi 3%. So we'll just discuss this percentage tax later. No? We also have excise tax. So excise tax are normally business tax on non-essential uh, services or non-essential goods, no, such as um, producing products such as um, cigarettes, no, liquors, no, yun siya. These are subject to excise tax. Now let's focus muna on the value-added tax. Okay, so value-added tax is a tax, no, on the value added to the purchase price, di ba? Or cost in the sale or lease of goods, property or services in the course of the trade or business in the Philippines. No? Um, so normally, no, um, sa resibo, di ba? Aside from the cost, no, may added, no, na cost, which is the value added tax, no, at 12% yun siya. So it is an indirect tax, no? So if you could still remember the discussion on your in the discussion on the income tax, no? No, classification of taxes, no? According to who bears the burden, no? Kasi pag indirect tax siya, that means na um, ikaw yung liable for the payment of the uh, uh, taxes. Pero hindi yung ikaw yung nag-carry ng burden, no? Kasi for example, no, so if you're engaged into buying and selling, no, so if you purchase product, 'di ba? So may tax 'yon, may input, may VAT 'yon, input VAT, 'di ba? However, when you sell the goods you have purchased, 'di ba, you normally sell products higher than it costs. So may markup or may patong. So so and when you sell the product, no, may VAT din 'yon, 'di ba? Output VAT, 'di ba? So parang nasa shift mo yung burden kay buyer, no? So shift mo yung burden. So ikaw yung uh, um, liable to pay for the tax. Pero yung burden of the tax napapasa mo, no? Unlike kung direct, say for example income tax direct 'yon, no? 'Di ba? So ikaw yung lang mabayad ng tax at the same time, you carry also the burden, no, of those tax, no, yun siya. Okay? So every person who in the course of trade or business sells, barter, exchange, or leases goods or property or render services is subject to 12% VAT. Okay? So subject ka lang to 12% VAT if the aggregate of his actual or expected gross sales and or gross receipt exceed 3 million. No, yan. Yan siya. So, if your gross sales exceed na 3 million, you are considered VAT taxpayer na, no? Pero upon registration, pwede ka na di mo na magpa-register as a VAT taxpayer, no? Kasi hindi ka pa man sure if your gross sales would exceed, di ba, the 3 million. However, may optional yon, optional requirement na pwede ka na magpa-register as VAT taxpayer, though your gross sales will not exceed 3 million pa, no? Yan siya. So, however, during the taxable year, no, nag-exceed ka na sa 3 million, you are subject na talaga to value-added tax or you are VAT taxpayer na. Okay? Also, though you are not in the course of trade or business, pero you import goods, though yung gi-import mo na goods is di siya in the course of the trade or business, subject ka pa rin of VAT. So, pwede ka na, hindi ka engage in trade or business, pero nag-import ka ng goods, subject yan siya to VAT. Okay? Yan siya. Kasi sabi ng batas, no, all importation, whether in the course of trade or business siya, dapat subject siya to value-added tax. No, kasi pag mag-import ka, hindi man nila alam, no, if yung imported goods mo is gagamitin sa business or not. Okay? So, the phrase in the course of trade or business means regular conduct, meaning hindi siya isolated transaction, no? So, normally regular meaning every day, no? Every week, no? So, or pursuit of a commercial or economic activity, including transactions thereto by any person, whether natural or juridical, no, regardless of whether or not the person engaged therein is a non-stock, non-profit organization, or government entity, no? Kasi even non-stock, non-profit organization, walang exemption, or or government entity is also subject to value-added tax. Okay. So for as long as the government entity sell, barter, exchanges, garender ng services in the course of trade or business, it is required to register as a VAT taxpayer. Okay? Siya. So generally, services rendered in the Philippines, no, by a non-resident foreign person shall be considered being rendered in the course of trade or business even if the performance is not regular or kahit isolated yung transaction. Kasi sabi ng batas, no, um, para exemption siya dito, no. Dapat para masubject siya to VAT, dapat in the course of trade or business or parang regular conduct, no. So if a non-resident foreign person, no, um um nag-render siya, no, ng services, no, though hindi siya regular or isolated lang, is subject to VAT. Okay? So non-resident corporations deriving income from services rendered or abroad, okay, so sa abroad man, are not subject to Philippine income tax and likewise not subject to value-added tax. Kasi 'di ba, non-resident corporations are taxable from income within the Philippines lang, no? So hindi siya subject to Philippine income tax and also hindi siya subject to value-added tax. Okay, so let's have VAT on sale of goods or property. So goods or property shall mean all tangible and intangible objects that are capable of pecuniary estimation and shall include, so 'di ba, as I've said kanina, no, every person, no, who in the course of trade or business sales, barter exchanges, no, so pwede na sale or render of services, subject siya to that. So what are the transaction or sales of goods or property na subject to value added tax? Kasi ang pag pag-sale, no, or pag-render ng services, pwede siya subject to VAT. Pwede din siya subject to VAT at 0% rate or subject to VAT at 12% rate or subject to VAT at 0% rate or yung zero rated sale or exempt siya from value added tax. Now, ano yung mga transaction or VAT on sale of goods or property na subject to value added tax? Okay? So first, real property held primarily for sale to customers or lease in the ordinary course of trade or business. No? Yan, so kung nagbebenta ka ng real property such as land and building, yan siya. The right or privilege to use patent, copyright, design, or model and other intangible property. The right or privilege to use in the Philippines any of industrial, commercial, or scientific equipment. The right or privilege to use motion pictures, films, tapes, and disc, radio, television, satellite transmission, and cable television time. Okay? So, this sale of goods or property shall be subject to 12% VAT based on the gross selling price. Okay? So, gross selling price is the total amount of money or its equivalent which the purchaser pays or is obliged to pay to the seller in the consideration of the sale, barter, or exchange of goods or properties, excluding the VAT. So, meaning to say, yung 12% VAT is based on the gross selling price exclusive of VAT. No? So, excise tax, if any, on such property or goods or of such goods or property shall form part of the gross selling price. Okay? Yan. Kasi pwede masabay yung uh, value added tax at excise tax. Pero hindi pwede na masabay si value added tax at percentage tax, no? Kasi either yon. So if you are subject to VAT, hindi ka subject to percentage. If you're subject to percentage, hindi ka pwede na subject ka rin to VAT, no? Yan siya. So, tax rate and tax base. So, there shall be levied, assessed, and collected on every sale or barter or exchange of goods or properties a value-added tax equivalent to 12% of the gross selling price or gross value in money of the goods or properties sold, barter or exchange, such as tax to be paid by the seller or transferor. So the tax base refers to the amount on which 12% rate of value added tax is applied. So, di ba? So, I've said kanina, the 12% VAT it should be applied to the gross selling price exclusive of the VAT. Thus, if the seller sells goods in cash or on account amounting to 10,000 excluding the tax, so how much would be your VAT payable? Should be 12%, 'di ba? 12% of the 100,000 kasi excluding the tax yung 100,000. Okay? So, if the amount of value added tax, output tax on the seller, input tax on the buyer is computed no as follows. So, if the amount is includes the tax, so pag inclusive siya, inclusive, no, meaning the 100 the the price includes the VAT. So, i-multiply mo siya by 3/28. No? So, bakit 3/28? Kasi dapat ano yan siya eh. Kasi inclusive mo siya ng VAT. Supposedly, pagka-compute niyan, 100,000, 112,000 times 12/112. No? Yan. Pero yung yung lowest term lang yung 3/28. So, if inclusive siya, yung um, the price, pwede din i-divide mo ng 1.12 times 12%. Or multiply mo siya ng 12/112 or 3/28. So, if the price, which is inclusive of VAT, is 112,000, you multiply mo lang 3/28 or times 12/112 or divide 1.12 times 12%, you'll get 12,000. So the value added tax is 12,000. So if the amount does not include the tax, no? So kung exclusive siya, then i-multiply mo na lang siya diretso ng 12%. Okay. So common query from the students for the purpose of computing the value added tax is when shall we multiply the tax base by 12% or by 3/28 or by 12/112? No. So answer, the tax base will be multiplied by 3/28 if the problem states that the amounts are inclusive of VAT or VAT inclusive or other similar terms. No? Or pag naka-invoice price siya. Kasi normally pag invoice price yan siya, inclusive na yan of VAT. It shall be multiplied by 12% if the problem indicates that the amounts are taken from the books. No, kasi pag taken on the books, kasi were record sales and purchases exclusive of VAT. Diba? So you remember, na pag mag-record tayo ng purchases, debit input tax, credit, cash, or accounts payable. So we normally record purchases and sales. No? Exclusive of tax, no? Or VAT tax not included, or the gross selling price, gross receipts, and other similar terms. So if yun yung term, then the given figure, i-multiply mo na lang siya ng 12%. Yun siya. Next, what are deduction from the gross selling price? So the following shall be allowed as a deduction from the gross selling price in computing the tax base during the month or quarter. So sales returns and allowances, no, for which proper credit or refund was made during the month or quarter the buyer for sales previously recorded as taxable sales. No, so 'di ba, if you can still remember, pag may sales and returns and allowances, 'di ba, ma-deduction din yung output tax, no? Yun siya. Kasi it's a debit to um, sales returns and allowances, debit output tax, and credit accounts receivable, no? Also for sales discount, no? Kasi yung entry mo doon, debit sales discount, debit output tax, credit accounts, debit cash, debit cash, then credit accounts receivable, no? So yun siya. So discounts determined and granted at the time of sale, which are expressly indicated in the invoice, the amount thereof forming part of a gross sales, duly recorded in the books of accounts. No? So if my sales returns and allowances and my sales discount, actually deduction siya from the output tax, and also deduction siya from the gross selling price to determine the net output tax. And purchase returns and allowances and purchase discount to get the net input tax. Yan. So sales discounts indicated in the invoice at the time of the sale, the grant of which not dependent upon the happening of a future event, may be excluded from the gross sales within the same month, quarter it was given. Okay. So you have an illustration here. No? So the following data are taken from the books of Tiberio Company during the month of April for the current year. So we have cash sales of 453,200. We have sales on account, 165,800. Sales returns and allowances for 31,548 and sales discount of 35,250. So the requirement is to compute for the gross selling price and the tax base, no? Of which saan mo i-base, no? Yung the value-added tax. Okay, so we have cash sales for 50,200, sales on account 565,800. Then i-deduct mo lang yung sales returns and allowances and sales discount to determine the tax base, no? And 52,222. So gross selling price includes all sales made during the period, whether cash sales or an account, no? Kasi pag you are a seller, no, if as seller of goods, no, or property, no, yun siya. So kasi whether cash or an account, no, pag issue ka ng receipt, may VAT yun, no. So sales discounts shall only be allowed as deduction from the gross selling price if it's indicated in the sales invoice, no, na subject siya to sales discount. Kasi may term yun, di ba? May term. Such as 2/10 and over 30. Yun. In the absence of the sales returns and allowances and sales discount, the tax base shall be the gross selling price. So pag walang sales returns and sales discount. So the termination of the tax. The 12% tax shall be multiplied, shall be computed by multiplying the total amount in the invoice. So pag invoice amount siya, inclusive yon, no? I-multiply mo siya ng 3/28 or divide 1.12 times 12% or times 12/112, no? The VAT payable is determined by deducting the input tax from the output tax. No? So, ano nga yung difference between the output tax and the input tax? So, depende yon. So, kung kanino kang point of view, 'di ba? So, if ano siya, point of view ka ni seller or nung nag-render ng service, okay? So, output tax yon. So, output tax is defined as the value-added tax due on the sale or lease of taxable goods or properties or services by any person registered or required to register under the tax code. So, it is also called as the output VAT. So, if point of view ka naman ni buyer, ka, no? Input tax yun or input VAT refers to the value-added tax form or paid by a VAT-registered person in the course of his trade or business on importation of goods or local purchase of goods or services, no? So, 'di ba, kasi whether pag importation, 'di ba, kasi whether or not nag for regular course of trade or business yon, no? Basta kayo nag-import ka, di ba, subject ka to VAT. Including lease or use of property from VAT-registered person. So, it's also called the input VAT. So, VAT payable is the excess of the output tax over the allowable input tax. No? So, in the case naman of importation, it's the value-added tax on such importation. No? Kasi pwede ka naman mag-import pero hindi mo siya ginagamit sa business. So, magbayad ka lang ng ng tax, 'di ba? The value-added tax. Kasi if hindi ka engaged in trade or business, tapos nag-import ka, so wala kang output tax kasi you are not selling the imported goods, no? So, yun lang. Kasi yung purchase, yung i-import mo, part sa cost nun or added sa cost nun is yung input tax. Okay? So, we have here, just to recall the entries, no? If the entity is a VAT registered taxpayer. No? So, Tendera, a VAT-registered taxpayer, sold to Mami Melay certain pieces of merchandise. So the amount indicated in the invoice is 6,720. So again, basta invoice price, inclusive yon of VAT. So Mommy Melay sold the same goods to Papa Billy for 11,200, who later on sell them to V-Belly, the ultimate consumer, for 17,920. Okay? So, yun siya. So, the requirement is to, record the journal entries in the books, in the entries in the sales book of Tendera, then record the accounting entries in the purchase and sales book of Mami Melay, compute the VAT payable of Mami Melay, and record accounting entries on the VAT payable to Papa Billy, and what is the tax consequence of V-Belly, the ultimate consumer. Okay? So, una, to, record the journal entry in the sales book of Tendera, diba? Ito yung siya. So, since VAT registered taxpayer siya, so pag magbenta siya, may output tax. So, debit siya ng cash or accounts receivable for the consideration, di ba? Yan. 6,720. So, yung sales natin, this is actually exclusive of VAT. Kasi di ba, so I've said kanina, sales should be exclusive of VAT. So, 6,720 divide mo ng 1.12. Pwede ganito, no? Forget the sales exclusive of VAT, 6,000. Or the difference ng output tax na, or 6,720 times 3 over 28 or times 12 over 112, that's 720. Or difference ng nito, 6,720 less 6,000. That's the output tax. Then second one, in the books of Mami Melly, kasi tendera siya yung seller. Si Mami Melly siya yung buyer, 'di ba? A buyer siya in this point, buyer siya. So, mag-record siya ng purchases exclusive of that. Tama ba? So, 6,000. Then, yung input tax is actually 12% of the 6,000. So, 6,000, 12% to 720. So, credit siya ng cash or accounts payable for 6,720. Now, di ba gibenta yun siya ni Mama Melly kay Papa Billy. Kay Papa Billy for 11,200, di ba? So, mag-debit lang siya ng cash accounts receivable for 11,200, di ba? And then, credit siya ng sales. So, this is actually 11,200, di ba? 11,200 divide 1.12. Di ba? 1.12. So, yun siya. So, you have 10,000. And then yung output tax is 11,200 less 10,000, or 11,200 times 12 over 112, or 11,200 times 3 over 28. No, for 1,200. Yun siya. So, to compute for the VAT payable of Mami Melly, so, this is actually the output tax, di ba? Yung output tax niya is 11,200. Then, yung input tax niya is 720. Yan. 480. So, di ba? No? This is a clear indication of indirect tax. Though si Mami Melly ang nagabayad ng tax, but yung nag-carry ng burden, hindi siya. No? Kasi na-shift niya kay buyer. Kasi though nung nag-purchase siya, 'di ba? Though nung nag-purchase siya, naka-incur siya ng 720, no? Pero at the time na nagbenta siya, he sold it more than its purchase price. So of course, it will result to output tax higher than the input tax, 'di ba? Kasi sino ba namang magbenta, no, na yung selling price is equal lang or lesser than the cost. Of course, may markup yun, no? Yan siya. So, you have VAT payable for 480. No? So, the na tayo kay Papa Billy to record the accounting entries for Papa Billy. So, in the purchase of Papa Billy, di ba, gibenta, na-purchase niya at 11,200 inclusive of VAT. So, purchase is 10,000, input tax, which is 12% of 10,000. So, Cash or accounts payable, 11,200. No? And then, di ba, gibenta niya kay, ano niya gibenta? Gibenta niya kay V Belly for 79.20. No, gibenta niya. So, cash accounts receivable, 79.20. So, sales ito, this is actually 79.20, no? Divide 1.12. Yan. Then, ang difference niyan naman is the output tax, 1920. 79.20 less 16,000 is actually 1920, or 79.20 times 12 over 112 times 3 over 28, or divide 1.12 times 12%. No? So, depende sa yung pag-compute. No? So, VAT payable ni Papa Belly, no? So, yun siya. Output tax, 1920. Okay? Yan. Output tax, 1920 less input tax, 12. The VAT payable is 720. No? So, excess siya ng output tax and input tax, 720. So, yun, same. Indirect tax din, no? Napasa ni, though si Papa Belly, he incurred 1-2 upon purchase of the goods. So, okay lang kasi when we sold the goods, it resulted to output tax of 120, which is included in the selling price. So, yun nga. May VAT payable siya 720. Okay? So, VAT, value-added tax is a tax on consumption. So, the seller is the one statutorily liable for the payment, but the amount of tax may be shifted or passed on the buyer. So, ang pinaka, low anis ang ultimate buyer. No? Kasi wala man siyang siya kapasahan sa VAT, di ba? No? Yun. So, being the ultimate consumer, V Belly shall assume the tax burden because she cannot pass it anymore to another. So, thus, upon purchase, she is bound to shoulder the tax of 1,920. Yun. No? So, ang ang pinaka-low is ang ultimate consumer. Di ba kay siya si V Belly ang pinaka-ultimate consumer na. Okay, so as what I have said kanina, 'di ba? Sa transactions, it could either be subject to VAT, or you are subject to VAT, or a transaction is a zero-rated transaction, meaning VATable transaction siya, pero it will not result to any output tax. No? Or exempt transaction siya, or not subject to value-added tax. Okay? The following sale by a VAT-registered person shall be subject to zero rate. Or this is actually a zero-rated transaction, di ba? So first is export sale. So parang ang common denominator nito is nabenta mo siya palabas or nag-render ka ng services palabas. Yun yung common denominator dito. Okay, so first, the sale and actual shipment of goods from the Philippines to a foreign country. Then, sale of raw materials or packaging materials to a non-resident buyer for delivery to a resident local export-oriented enterprise. And sale of raw materials or packaging materials to export-oriented enterprise whose export sales exceeded 70% of total annual production. Okay? So, parang nagbenta ka of raw materials, though hindi siya directly export, pero yung gibentahan mo is export-oriented enterprise, of which 70% of their annual production is nabenta sa abroad. And then your transaction still is a related sale. Those considered export sale under the Omnibus Investment Code of 1987, no, and other special laws, no, Example, sales to diplomatic missions and other agencies and or instrumentalities granted tax immunities. Sales of goods, suppliers, equipment, and fuel to persons engaged in international shipping or international air transport operations. Yun. Also, a foreign currency denominated sale. No? It means sale to a non-resident of goods, except automobiles and non-essential goods. Yan. Assembled or manufactured in the Philippines for delivery to a resident in the Philippines. Next, yung effectively generated sales. So effective generated sales of goods and property shall refer to the local sale constructive export by a VAT registered person to any person or entity who has granted indirect tax exemptions under special laws or international agreements such as sale to ADB, Asian Development Bank, sale to International Rights Research Institute, sale to duly registered or accredited enterprises with Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority or SBMA, and sale to duly registered and accredited enterprise with Philippine Economic Zone Authority or yung PEZA. No? So, actually, ang technique nito, i-memorize mo lang. No? Ito yung transaction that are, generated. No? Or yung common denominator. Nagbenta ka or tawag ito, nag-render ka ng services palabas. So, zero-rated sale of goods and properties by a VAT registered person is a taxable transaction for VAT purposes. So if ang question is, subject ba yan siya to VAT? Yes. So, subject siya to VAT at, ang output niya, 0%. 0% nga lang. Diba? Pero, anong mangyari, no? May input ka. 12%, no? So, export-oriented ka, as actually, wala kang output, pero may input ka, no? Wala kang output kasi yung transactions mo, zero-rated, diba? No? And then, pero, when you purchase goods, diba, may input tax ka, no? Or, nag-purchase ka ng services, no? May input tax ka 12%, no? So, automatic yung input tax mo related siya to a zero-rated sale, allowed yun as tax credit, no? You may have it be refunded or i-credit siya, no? I-claim mo siya as tax credit. Yan. Okay? So, kasi pag vatable siya, ang output mo at 12%, ang input mo at 12%, so normally may VAT payable ka of the excess of the output and input, di ba? No? Pero pag VAT exempt ka, is different from zero-rated. In as much as zero-rated, VAT registered taxpayer cannot charge output VAT but can claim input VAT. No? Okay? So, ang difference niya, kasi pag exempt transaction siya, so, walang output. Wala kang output, no? Kasi, you are not subject to value-added tax. However, no, for example, VAT exempt, entity. So, pag magbenta ka, so walang VAT. Kasi, hindi ka man pwede mag-impose ng VAT kasi you are not a VAT registered taxpayer. Violation yon, no? Pag non-VAT ka, tapos nag-impose ka ng value-added tax, violation yon. So, pero, pag mag-purchase ka, no? Nag-purchase ka in the ordinary course of trade or business, so pwede na, nag-purchase ka sa VAT taxpayer, no? Ng goods, of course, patawan ka nila ng VAT, no? Kasi VAT registered sila, no? So, ang kaibahan lang na pag exempt ka, you cannot claim input tax. Kasi zero rated. Kasi if si vatable entity, they can, yun, when they sold goods, may 12% VAT. Kung mag-import siya, may 12%. At pwede niya ma-claim yung input tax. No? Yung zero-rated transactions naman, may output tax. Yes. Pero 0% nga lang. Di ba? So, how about yung input tax niya? Pwede niya ma-claim. No? Yun nga, as a tax credit or par fund. However, si VAT exempt, so, wala siyang output tax. No? And di niya pwede i-claim yung input tax kasi di man siya VAT registered taxpayer. So ano mangyayari sa input tax? So included na siya sa cost, no? Kasi for example, so kung VAT registered ka, no? VAT registered ka. And then you nag-purchase ka. So nag-purchase ka, purchases, let's say for example 100,000. Then debit ka input tax. Debit ka input tax. At 12% of 100,000. So yan, credit ka ng input tax. Credit ka accounts payable, 'di ba? Or cash, AP or cash at 112,000. Okay? Yan. Yan. And then, if VAT exempt ka, no? Or non-VAT registered ka, or non-VAT registered, dito na lang, non-VAT registered, non-VAT. Okay? So, ang pag-record mo, yan, so wala kang input tax. So, ang ma-record mo na purchases, naka-include ang VAT doon. So, masali siya sa cost ng goods. Okay? Yan siya. Kasi, hindi ka pwede sa books mo walang input tax. Kasi, hindi mo pwede ma-claim din si input tax. So, kung magbenta ka, wala ding output tax. Yan. Okay? Yan siya. Okay, next we have transactions deemed sale or deemed sale transactions, no? So, ano yung mga transaction deemed sale? So, these are actually transactions though walang actual transfer, sale, barter exchange ng goods. These are actually deemed sale. Of course, which when we say sale, subject siya to output tax. Okay? So, first, transfer or consumption not in the course of trade or business of goods or properties originally intended for sale or for use in the course of trade or business. So, yan, gi-transfer mo or gi-consume, no? Say for example, yung yung property or yung goods na intended na ibenta, no, ng entity, ginamit niya sa business, no? It's actually transaction deed sale, no? Subject to value added tax, may output tax. Consignment, no? If not sold within 60 days, no? So, if within 60 days, yung consigned goods, hindi nabenta, no? That's actually deemed sale na, no? Distribution or transfer to creditors. So, if yung goods, which is subject to yung ginabenta natin na goods is gidistribute mo or in payment of debt or dasyon and pago, no? Subject siya to value-added tax, deemed sale, or distribution or transfer to shareholders or investors as share in the profit. Yun, ano din siya, deemed sale. And or ito retirement or cessation or business or incorporation of single proprietorship with respect to all goods on hand. No, so ito siya, though pag mag-retire ka ng business, yung ano mo, unsold goods, deemed sale yon, no? Kahit hindi siya nabenta. Kasi of course, hindi siya nabenta, no? Yung mga goods on hand mo. Yan. So, shall be noted that the tax base for deemed sale transaction would be the lower of acquisition cost or the current market price, where the gross selling price is unreasonably lower than the actual market value. The pre-tax base shall be determined by the commissioner. So, the gross selling price is unreasonably lower than the actual market if it's lower by more than 30% of the actual market value of the same goods of the same quantity or quantity sold in immediate locality on the nearest date of sale. Yun siya. Also, transfer of assets as a result of merger or consolidation are not considered as deemed sale transaction. However, if the unused input tax of the dissolved corporation as of the date of merger or consolidation shall be absorbed by the surviving corporation in case ito of business combination. Okay? So we have here an illustration. Yan. Ibaba na lang natin. Illustration. Okay? So, Antonio is engaged in merchandising business. He sells invoice and other data during the month of January shown below. So, goods sold on cash, 784,000. Goods consigned, January 10 of the current year, 265,000. And goods consigned, November 10 of the preceding year, 16,800. No? Goods taken for personal use, 70,920. Goods taken as payment of creditors, 24,640. Payment of merchandise, 728,000. And purchase of supplies, 89,600. So, yan. So, sales invoice. So, therefore, ano ito? Inclusive. Dahil sa basa, invoice price, automatic yun siya. VAT inclusive. Okay? Yan. Okay, so you have here, so asa diri ang subject to value-added tax. Of course, the cash sales, diba? 784,000 sa output tax. 784,000. Consigned goods. So, itong 265,000, di ba dapat 60 days siya? 60 days, ano yan yung 60 days? If not sold within 60 days of date of consignment, no? So, January 10, so wala pa. No? Itong November 10, ito more than 60 days na ito. So, deemed sale na. No? Goods taken for personal use, ito deemed sale, 'di ba? As per ito, transfer, use, or consumption. No? Yan siya. 7920 and payment to creditors, ito yon. Yan. Distribution or transfer to creditors, 'di ba? Deemed sale yan siya. So therefore, ito siya, though walang actual sale, ito mga transaction deemed sale, subject siya to value-added tax. So, included siya in the computation of the output tax. So, the total is 843,360, of which VAT inclusive yon times 12 over 112 times 3 over 28 or divide 1.12 times 12%, the output tax is 90,360. So yung input tax mo, ito yun, based sa pag-purchase of merchandise and purchase of supplies. So 728,000 plus 89,600, yung tax base mo is 87,600 times 3 over 28, so 87,600. No? So your VAT payable is 2,760. Yan siya. Okay, so next. So what if sale of this is actually real property, sale of real properties, no? Sale of real property classified as capital asset is not subject to VAT. The distinguish naman yan, no, in your income tax, what are the ordinary asset in a capital asset. Basta ordinary asset, those are assets na ginagamit ng business, no? So kung nagbenta ka ng real property, no, nagbenta ka ng real property, so yung real property mo is inventory siya if you are a seller of real properties, you're engaged into buying and selling real properties. However, if capital asset siya, no, subject siya to capital gains tax at 6% of the fair market value and zonal value, whichever is higher between the fair market value and zonal value. Okay, so yung subject lang to value-added tax is yung property classified as, real property classified as ordinary asset, no? Or yung you're engaged into buying and selling real properties, okay? In general, sale of real property primarily held in the normal course of business. So, yung sabi ko kanina, classified as inventory or ordinary asset is subject to value-added tax, except, no, residential lot with selling price of 1.5 million and below, and sale of house and lot and other residential buildings with selling price at 2.5 million below. Yan. Kasi ito makonsider yan as capital asset. No? Kasi, ito naman, sale of real properties in the course of later business, no? Yan siya. On installment plan, initial payment do not exceed 25% of the gross selling price. So, ano yung ma-include sa initial payment? So, the installment received plus the interest and other charges, yung tax base mo, of which i-base mo yung 12% of that. So, upon full payment, if the zonal market value is higher than the total receipts or collection, the additional VAT shall be paid accordingly. No, if upon full payment, no, yun nga, the market value, no, is higher than the total receipts na na-collect mo, no, during the installment period, is subject to value-added tax. On cash sales or deferred payment plan, no, if the initial payment exceeds 25% of the gross selling price, 25% of the gross selling price, the tax base shall be the higher between selling price stated in the sales document and zonal or market value. Okay? So, it shall also be noted that if the gross selling price is the zonal value or market value of real property, the zonal value or market value shall be deemed inclusive of that. No? Okay? If the VAT is not billed separately, so kung mag-compare ka, no, dapat yung zonal value, i-consider mo na inclusive of VAT. So dapat yung selling price mo must also be inclusive of VAT para mag-compare ka. If the VAT is not billed separately, the selling price in the sales document shall be deemed inclusive of VAT. Okay, so we have your illustration. So, Bahay Kubo is a real estate dealer, no? So, details of its sales during the year show the following. So, date of sale, June 2, 2018. And then, consideration in the deed of sale, 4.8 million. Ay, consideration, date of sale, June 2018, na ba? Consideration is 5 million. Fair market value in the assessment rolls 4.8. So, di ba, yung basis natin is higher between the selling price and fair market value. And then, and also the total value is 5.2 million. No? So, ang tax base natin dito is 5.2, di ba? Kasi whichever is higher. No? Yung schedule of payment mo, okay? So, for June 2, 2018, 1 million. For June 2, 2019, 2 million. And June 2, 2020 is 2 million. No? Yan. So, how do we know, no, na nag-exceed ba yung initial payment, no, of the 5% of the gross selling price? So, the ratio of initial payment of the over the selling price is 1/5. So, di ba kasi yung 5 million, makollect mo siya for 2018, 1 million, for 2019, 2 million, and for 2020, 2 million. So, the ratio is 20%. Okay? So, ang type of sale is, installment sale. No? So, pwede mo i-defer yung output tax. No? So, the output tax on 2019, no, is 2/5. This is actually the ratio between the collection over the selling price. Pero kasi ang output tax mo dito, ang output tax kasi is 5,200,000 times 12%. Okay? Yan siya. So, how much is 5,200,000 times 12%? No? 12%. 624,000. Ito, diba? 624,000. Okay? And then, ito yun siya. Kasi ang basis mo, di ba, is whichever is higher between the consideration, the fair market value, and zonal value. So, since mas higher man, no, si zonal value, yun yung basis mo for the VAT. Okay? So, since the ratio does not exceed, no, 25% of the gross selling price, pwede, based on the initial pay, ang basis mo dito is the initial payment, meaning ang lahat na makolekta mo over the year, taxable year. So say for example, 2018, 1 million lang man. So 1 million over 5 million, 20%. So pag it do not exceed 25%, then pwede mo i-defer yung output tax. Kasi if the initial payment, no, if the initial payment exceed 25%, no, exceed 25%, then yung output VAT, i-impose siya on the year of sale entirely. Okay? Entirely. So say for example, pag yung ratio sa initial payment over the selling price is above 25%, then yung 64,000 i-recognize siya as output tax for 2018, no? But pag less than 20%, then less than 25%, no? At 25% below, no, kasi man yun, exceed 25% daw. So what if exactly 25%? So yun siya. Installment pa din. So pwede mo i-defer din yung pag-impose ng value-added tax based sa ratio of your ratio na na-collect mo over the selling price times, yun nga, times the value-added tax, which is 5.2 times 12%. So for 2019, you impose output tax of 249,600. Yan. So kumbaga for 2018, 1 million over 5 million times 624,000. Yun. I-impose mo. Okay? Yan. See, so we'll have the other topics in the next video lecture. So thank you everyone.